everybody, I'm Alexis. This is my husband Garrett. He's an ISFP. He'll be around here sometimes, for those of you guys who are wondering. So today we're continuing the series about what we find annoying about the types, and today we're doing the ISTJ. One thing I want to kind of reiterate is that it's just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek title. It's mostly just like how the types can grow in certain ways. Like we all have amazing things that we shouldn't try to change about ourselves, and we all have some like edges that kind of need refined. It's like the quote, we're all works of art and artists working on ourselves simultaneously. So that's kind of my whole vibe for this thing. And what I like to say is, like, if you get into typology and you start hating people more, you're doing it wrong. So you shouldn't happen that you like learned about ISTJs and you're like, I hate all ISTJs. Like, what should happen is you understand them more, and then you see where they're coming from more, and you're like, oh, actually this gives me more perspective about them, and I actually like them more. You didn't like them. I love ISTJs. I think I have some great times with ISTJs. I feel pretty bad for them because I feel like they get kind of a bad rap in the typology community. Just they're a bunch of worker ants and they're like cogs in the machine. So I kind of feel bad. I'm doing this video on all the types, but I kind of feel bad doing it on the ISTJs because they get so much crap all the time anyways. So yeah, in this video, that's what we're going to talk about. So I want to start out by talking about what I like about ISTJs. Kind of a funny story. I was at like the scholarship competition and I met this ISTJ and we ended up arguing about this philosophical topic for like 3 hours, and it was so fun, and we became super good friends, which that's kind of a weird story. I argue with ISTJs a lot, and I actually have a lot of fun. I find that there's not a lot of misunderstandings. Our TE communicates in the same way, and so it just gels so well. And then we like get into arguments sometimes because I think our NI and SI have different philosophies, but it's so fun. And I think the more I get to know ISTJs, the more quirky they are, and like a lot of like some of the best times I've had are with ISTJs. So I think they're a lot more fun than people give them credit for. I've had some really good friend ISTJs.
Yeah, my mom is an ISTJ, and then one of my best friends was an ISTJ also, and so I like how loyal they are. I think I said that for ISFJs too, but they're really loyal friends. I think they're great at activities. I think they're, NE I think is really good at doing creative things or thinking of fun things to do with friends. So
I feel like you do really well with ISTJs.
Yeah,
he's really good at like focusing on them in a group. Sometimes ISTJs can like fade into the background, and he's really good at kind of like making sure they feel included, sort of. Like he'll mess with them and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they like him a lot, the ISFP.
Yeah. One quick note we wanted to make. So common mistypes, especially in Myers-Briggs, if you've just taken a test once, it's common to mistype one letter off. And we've noticed with ISTJ specifically, a lot of times can mistype as an ISTP. So maybe if you're an ISTJ, if you think you're an ISTJ and you're watching this video and this doesn't resonate very much, maybe check out some ISTP videos, see if that resonates. Otherwise, check out some other like one letter off videos like ESTJ or ISFJ or something like that. So
yeah, I think if you have kind of a beginner understanding and you just know the letter dichotomies of J versus P, there's a lot of stuff that's like, oh, J means you're planned and you're on time and you're clean and, just kind of this basic stuff. And ISTPs can fall into a lot of those categories. And so really check into the ISTP, even if you feel that you're very planned and stuff, because they lead with a J function. So if you really resonate with that J part, ISTPs do lead with a J function, and ISTJs lead with a P function. It's very confusing kind of nomenclature.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the definitions. If you look on the screen, I think he'll put it on the screen. ISTJs have 4 cognitive functions, and so I want to talk about the definitions. Their first cognitive function is introverted sensing. And introverted kind of means like turning inward, and then sensing is like your experiences, things that you've like sensed, things you've experienced. And so when you go inward, the introverted, and process things you've experienced, that's pretty much a memory. And because your first function means you love to do it, so you love processing things you've experienced. So that means you love reliving things after the fact via like your memories, or sometimes that can be tradition. I'll talk about that a little bit because I feel like ISTJs don't relate to the word tradition as much as ISFJs do, for example. And it can be it can be about stories, but pretty much just processing and making meaning from things that you experienced after the fact. Their second function is extroverted thinking. So extroverted is kind of like external. That includes people, what's happening, things that are happening not in your head, basically. And then thinking is pretty much things that are like logical criteria. So that can have to do with metrics. When you think of like logical criteria, that can have to do with metrics. So external metrics, that could be things like money, time, how productive are we being as a group, how efficient are we being as a group, is this working? Yes or no? Like if we thought, it's not like, is this going to work in our heads? But it's like, okay, it's a good idea, but like, is this working out here? What's working? What's most efficient? Their third function is introverted feeling. This is where you can tell a big difference between ISTPs and ISTJs. So if you don't relate to being very feeling-ish, that's even more so that maybe you should maybe look into ISTP. Because ISTPs have their feeling function fourth, whereas ISTJs have their feeling function third, and people tend to dip into that third function very commonly. So ISTJs can actually be kind of sensitive and depressive, which I'll talk about. But introverted feeling means you're inward feelings. So how you feel about things, that can be your feelings, your emotions, that can be morals, convictions, things of that nature. It's how things strike you personally. Then the fourth function is extroverted intuition. Intuition are things that are not here presently. And extrovert are things like, how could they play out here? So that's like, what could be, or what could we create, or what could we do today? So a lot of times it's ideas, creativity, inventiveness, but it's how can we bring what ifs to life externally. So yeah, those are the four functions. Patterns I notice a lot of times when people find something annoying, it's like you're too much in your first function, not nuanced enough in your second function, too much in your third function, and not enough in your fourth function. So those are some patterns I notice. And I think if someone's an acquaintance, it's even more likely that it's those first two functions that are going to bother you. And then when you're in a closer relationship, it's more likely that those bottom two functions will bother you. So we're going to get into it. We're going to start with the first function, just talk about what are some things that bother us related to the first function. And these functions are on an axis, so their first and fourth function, introverted sensing and extroverted intuition, are like together. So when I write some things in the introverted sensing box, it could go in the extroverted intuition box because they're on an axis. But I just kind of picked whichever I felt better about. You want to start? Do you have something you want to say about?
Yeah, I said this similar about the ISFJs also. But leading with SI, I've noticed a lot of them can be non-risk takers. So maybe they have, with their any, their lower any, they have dreams and they do have desires for, big things in life. But a lot of times their SI can be worried about safety and stop them or prevent them from taking risks.
Yeah, I do agree with that. The first one I want to talk about was them being kind of traditional. And I find that ISTJs don't really resonate with that word traditional, but I do still find them to be traditional in the sense, like certain phrases like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, don't reinvent the wheel. These seem to be phrases that ISTJs are really inclined to. And so this bothers me when I have a new idea and I'm like, we should try this. And they're like, well, no, what we're doing is working. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm like, if it's not broke, I'm like, that's our bar. If it's not broke, okay, then that means it's perfect. I'm like, okay, it works, but it's like a 7 out of 10. Can't we reach for like a 10 out of 10? Like, it works, but we could do more. Or they're like, don't reinvent the wheel. And I'm like, you're talking about your Dell laptop from 1995. Don't say reinvent the wheel for your 1995 Dell laptop. It's like, the wheel is a good invention, but the thing you're talking about is not. So, yeah, so I find that they have this mindset that's like, if I'm presented with logical evidence to change, then I'll change. And I'm just not very frequently presented with very logical evidence. And so I don't change. And so I feel that one thing that ISTJs need to be aware of is that if they're not enough in extroverted intuition, their fourth function, which sees the possibilities, if they don't have that, then they're kind of blocking themselves off. Nope, I won't see possibilities. What I see is what is and what has been. And those things are good. Future things, could be's, potentials. That just causes a lot of chaos. That's going to cause me to spend a lot of energy. I don't know if I want to do that. So that can be something that it irks me when I have a new idea and they're like, no, what we're doing worked.
Yeah.
Let's keep the rotary phone going.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot can be, and similar to ESTJs, I said, but can be pessimistic towards the future. So I don't know, it must be a combination with TE, but they, without a balance of any I think is very positive about the future. Like, things are heading in a good direction, things are going well and can be improved and get better. Whereas it seems like a lot of times SI dominants can think that the world is getting worse, that things were a lot better back in the day, whatever back in the day was for that person, and that things are getting worse and worse.
Right. There's not usually a consensus among SI users. It's like if you have an SI user that was born in the 50s, they're like, oh, the 50s were the good times. Or if you have an SI user that was born in the 90s, like, oh, the 90s were the good times. And the world's just downhill. So it's kind of, it's very subjective. And I would say there's definitely a bias.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to like sort of retreat to the past because it's more comfortable. Whereas NE is more comfortable with the future. So sort of balancing that, being okay with both.
Right. One thing I was going to mention is they seem to be scared of a lot of stuff. Like, they're very, like, I don't know what it was. Like, they're, you know, really rigorous about making sure they're wearing a helmet, really nervous about getting mugged, nervous about, like, driving, if there's going to be, like, a lot of traffic and stuff. I find that traffic makes them kind of nervous and stuff. Yep. And the reason, I mean, that's fine, but the reason that's annoying to me is then if I do something that is not in line with that, like if I, like, for example, I'm moving to a big city. So I'm getting a lot of SI users at the moment. They're like, okay, be careful, don't get mugged, you don't know what's going to happen. And they triple lock all their doors. They've got like this device shutting their door. And it's like, you researched the safest place you could possibly live. You live in a suburb where there is 0% crime and you are triple times locking your door. And so it's just a little overkill on the safety sometimes.
Yeah. And that being said, it might be different with ISTJs who were born in big cities.
Oh, yeah.
We're around
we are from,
like smaller towns, so...
Yeah, this is all very subjective. I can think of ISTJs that... I should mention this in all the videos. Like, I can think of ISTJs that don't do these things. I can think of ISTJs that do these things. It's just a spectrum of, like, healthy to unhealthy plus, you know, your background, a mixture of certain things. So these are not by all means true of every single ISTJ. Yeah. Okay, the final one that I notice very commonly, this is one of the more universal themes, is staying in a job they hate. It's like they have enough, you know, this could have been in multiple boxes, but it's like they have enough FI to understand that they don't like it, but not enough FI to understand, maybe I should do something I do like. It's like this SI sense of duty, like, well, I've just created this system where the whole world depends on me, and if I left this job, the whole company would collapse, and then what am I going to do? And they put a lot of, it's like pressure on themselves. Like, I think it must be exhausting to put so much pressure on yourself, to feel like the company is going to, not literally collapse, but they do seem to think that there's gonna, like, something bad will happen if they left. Yeah. Yeah, so I think a lot of what this introverted sensing is avoiding change. I think so much of this is just change avoidance. So even if there's not a lot of nuance or distinction between good change and bad change. It's just, in general, all change is bad. It's kind of the rule that it seems like SI DOMs have kind of imprinted in their mind. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot. The first box always has a lot. It won't be this many. It'll be like 2 per box going forward. Are you good with that one?
Yep. That's it for that.
Okay. Extroverted thinking. Go for it, Gary.
All right. I put, and this is coming from an FI dominant, but bossy without authority. So I've noticed in INTJs too, so the ITJs, I think they have enough TE to, I think bossy is not necessarily a good term, but care about like organizing the group and stuff, but whereas TE DOMs do it, I think, in more of a sort of graceful way, I guess. It seems like TE second place can sometimes just be sort of rough about it in a way. So
that's great. Can you give an example?
I should have thought of one. It's like they're just sort of telling everyone what to do. Whereas I think TE dominant sort of get consensus. Like, I think they're better at getting an idea of what everyone wants to do and then sort of collaborating on what to do. Whereas TE, I think they have enough FI that they know what they want to do and they try to just get everyone to do it.
Yeah, I think I do notice with TE DOMs, it's more like, let's do this thing. Like, we're going to do this thing. Where I do notice that with TE second, it's more like, okay, you are going to go do this, you are going to go do this, you are going to go do this. And meanwhile, you're like, what are you doing? Especially with, like, siblings, I find, because, like, extroverted thinking second, I think, is a little nervous about its abilities. So it's, like, especially with people that know them. Yeah. I think TE second doesn't come out as much. Yeah. I don't know where, like I say, these could be in different boxes, but I put it in this one, I think, probably because I just needed 2 things. I've been trying to keep it fair, so I've been doing 4 things in the first box and 2 things in the rest of the boxes on my end, and then whatever you have. So that's probably why I put it in this box. So I said they're a little, like, anal sometimes with, like, okay, like, there's this teacher, for example, she required all students had to have a 3/4 inch binder, and it had to be 3 ring, and it had to be this brand, and it had to have these pockets. And I think it's because, like, I think ISTJs like that. Like, when I had ISTJ students, they're like, how would you like us to head our paper? How would you like it? You know, and they had a lot of questions, and I was always just like, oh, frick if I care. Like, I don't care. Head your paper however you want. I don't care. And so they're like, do you want us to put, the date on it and the class period on it and everything? I'm like, I don't care. I'm never going to look at that once. I know what class period you're in. I don't care. But so then I would always get so ticked if I had teachers that were like, you need to get this kind of binder. I'm like, that does not work for me. It works for you. It doesn't work for me. I do not want to do this 3-ring binder system. I tend to notice SI users like the 3-ring binders in particular. Yeah. I like the accordion file one.
Those are terrible. Disgusting.
The other example was this resume. I helped my friend fill out a resume, and she did 80 drafts of this resume, and she was never changing any of the content of the resume. It was the line spacing, the font. Oh, I think it needs to be 11.5 font. Do you think this Times New Roman's good? And it was just this endless and so I was like, okay, I don't know that I'm gonna help you again. This is more than I bargained for when I was helping you with this resume. You guys going crazy with it?
Yeah, I've noticed it does seem like that T can I just lost what I was saying. I don't remember.
Oh, nice. That's fine. Maybe you can think of it also.
Yeah, I'll think of it.
Okay. This is one they'd rather be, and this goes for probably INTJs as well. Rather be right than happy. it's like the FI is like, I have to be right. People have to respect. It's like with the T. It's like this FITE blends of people have to respect me. I have to be right. But not enough FI to be like, I want to be happy. And how are my feelings? It's mostly just kind of these negative feelings. And sometimes that's how you get this, when this INTJ friend and I met, we argued for 3 hours on this one point. We thought it was super fun. And it's that wanting to be right.
Yeah.
It was a fun time. I don't regret it.
I put another for TE, hard time showing emotion. I put this for the ESTJ also. It seems like a struggle showing tenderness is what I put, or emotions. I think they can't express emotion like frustration or dislike of their job. I've noticed that a lot, things they dislike. But as far as showing tenderness can be sort of more difficult, it seems like. Things like love or.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's literally my first point for. But the thing I'll add, I guess, is a depressive nature. Yeah, kind of. You get the vibe sometimes that they're not enjoying their life or that their life is meaningless. And one thing that I think about is when you think back on the highlight reel of your life, all the phenomenal things that have happened. You're like, oh, I moved away to this, and then I went to college at this new place, and I got this job, and I got married, and the highlight reel of your life is almost always change. It's change in some way. And so by canceling out change, you cancel out the whole highlight reel of your life. You're blocking yourself off from all those amazing experiences. So one thing I like to think of, or I'm talking to ISTJs, I'm like, what do you want to be on the highlight reel of your life this year? What are you going to do? And they're usually like, do you think it's a good time to be making changes and planning? I think maybe we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we should. And there's always some reason. Not to say that we shouldn't, but if you want to leave your job, you could leave your job in the middle of a pandemic. I left my job in the middle of a pandemic, so it's not impossible to make changes, just because they're adverse circumstances. But they tend to find excuses for this is, I have this very logical reason for why I cannot make a change right now, and you just get the vibe that it's an excuse. There's some validity to it, but you're like, this is mostly in your case an excuse.
Yeah, and we're talking about balance in all of the functions, and I feel like it can be a tendency of SI and FI to loop those two functions, and so you're looping the bad parts of both, where you're just staying in the same job, relationship, whatever it is, you're staying in that same thing and disliking it, so you've got enough FI to dislike it, whereas a healthy FI is balanced with TE enough to, this is what I want, so I'm going to change it with my TE. And SI is balanced enough with any to be like, well, there's actually some other possibilities. I don't have to be stuck to this job you're sort of trying to balance all these functions, whereas you can get in this introverted loop of, oh, everything's going wrong and I'm stuck. I can't do anything. Whereas NE is going to say, no, you have other options. TE is going to be like, I can do it. I can figure it out.
Right.
So use a healthy FI of what do you actually want, and then balance it with your extroverted functions to get that.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was so good. Super good. Yeah, I think NE can brainstorm like 40 ideas that you could do. NE, especially when it's used well and it's really leaned into, it's like any users can brainstorm so quickly. This idea, this idea, this idea, this idea, this idea. Yeah. And then TE is very, it's got a big work ethic. It's part of the ISTJ work ethic, and I think you definitely could. It's, it goes back to that phrase, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I do notice in a lot of unhealthy ISTJs' lives, they have plenty of things that are broke that need fixing, and they're not being attended to.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's hurting you, fix it. If you're complaining about it, fix it.
Yeah, it's okay. Complain to someone about it once. The second time you complain about it, it's on you. It's like, once it's on them, twice it's on you. Yeah. Okay, we good with that five?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you have for NE?
This is a little. I noticed they can be unexpressive. I think NE is pretty expressive. I've noticed sometimes ISTJs can be unexpressive, like just sort of monotonous in their expressions or something.
Like, you mean facial expressions?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't say no facial expressions. It probably comes down to no FE.
Yeah, could be.
Pretty much. But with that being said, ENFPs, who have all these same functions, are very expressive on their face.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it is a different kind of expressiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say NE tends to have a lot of hobbies. And ISTJs sometimes don't. Like, I know ISTJs, like, this is the typical thing with an ISTJ. They go hiking on the weekends, and at least around here, and that's pretty much it. They eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work. On the weekend, they'll, have the token one hike.
Yeah, they normally have, like, one hobby, it seems like. Because normally, they've got to satisfy the NE somehow. So they've got, like, one thing that they do. But yeah, they don't have a lot. They don't branch out from that.
Yeah.
They've found their hobby, and now they've made that NE. It was NE at one point. Now they've made it SI.
That's true. You tried something new once, and then you did it every single day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it's no longer NE.
And especially for healthy SI is getting a lot of memories, and it has to balance with NE creating new memories. So if you're doing the same thing, you're just getting the same memories. You're getting the same, like, just a feedback loop of, like, an echo chamber of you're getting the same experience, or you're getting the same belief systems, whereas NE is trying out new things. So you need to try out some new hobbies, some new ways of doing things, so your SI can actually process some new information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I think of some of the healthiest ISTJs I know, they have a lot of hobbies, and they've tried a lot of new things. When you get an ISTJ that's showing me some new experiences, that is a really cool experience, because that's a really healthy ISTJ. Some of the healthiest ISTJs I know have moved cities a bunch, like, aside from their parents. Like, it doesn't really count if you had to move as a kid because your parents moved or someone else in your family, but if it was your decision and you moved or something, I think that those are some of the healthiest ISTJs I know, and they have all these diverse experiences, and they're like, well, there's this way of doing things in this part of the country, and over here there's this way of doing things. I knew one ISTJ who went and he lived in a different country. He was one of the healthiest ISTJs I knew. He's like, he had tried it, he had, like, this more well-rounded SI. It's like, they do things this way here, and this works, and I saw that they do things this way, and it works, and I saw they do things here, and so then they have combined all those to have their own system that works really well, because the more you can NE, put yourself in new experiences, then you get to see more things that work. Whereas when you're in one setting, you only see things that work in that setting. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed healthy ISTJs are really good. Their SI is really good if they've balanced it with NE at distilling information. Like, I think they've got really good insights into life, into, like, just humanity in general. Like, this is how people work, because they've experienced a lot. I think SI can be really good at that sort of stuff, because they've processed so much if they're actually experiencing new things and stepping out.
Right, SI is processing experiences you've had, and if you've only had, 2 experiences in your life, then you just sit there and dwell on these same, memories over and over. But the more you put yourself in new situations, and you have more stuff. What did I think about that? What do we make of this, like, new thing?
Yeah.
Which I think. Yeah, so I think just like the advice, as it is for all the types, is to work on your second and fourth function. I think in the case of TE, the second function, it's to speak up more and make a change, specifically in a career setting. TE can be a very work-oriented function. So I think it's like, make a change, get it done. What do you want? Take control of that work environment instead of that work environment happening to you. Where you feel like, oh, I've got this boss and I don't like this boss, and complaining about it. Like, I think ISTJs make phenomenal bosses. I had one ISTJ boss. He was phenomenal. And I kind of got the vibe that maybe he doubted himself. And I think a lot of ISTJs probably do doubt themselves in leadership situations. But they are so good at it. It's like, I mean, I said this in my other ISTJ video, but it's like, maybe you feel like you're not the best leader. But look at everyone else who's leading, and are you better than all those people? Yeah, you probably are. So, you should just do it, because you don't have to be perfect. It's like, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the slowest person.
Yeah.
And so I think in the ISTJ case, they're in the front of the pack a lot of the time in a lot of jobs. And then, yeah, the other extroverted function to work on is that extroverted intuition. So I would say just try new experiences. I've had a lot of ISTJs have like an ENFP buddy. I knew an ISTJ married to an ENFP. I knew an ISTJ like really best friends with an ENFP, and they are so good together. And those are the two probably healthier examples of ISTJs I can think of, because they put themselves with an NE user and they rubbed off on each other so well. I think that's such a good pair when you're with someone that's kind of the situation you and I are in, sort of, but they have the same functions but different order, and I think that's super good advice. And then the NE user will just take you on all these new experiences, and you don't even have to put in that much effort. You just go along for the ride. The NE user will take you on all these new experiences.
Yeah, I guess that's a way of outsourcing your function.
Oh, yeah, outsource it. Yeah, good TE. You get your minions. They do it for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to reiterate that I love ISTJs. We're just doing about all these, and like I said at the beginning, I do feel bad doing this to ISTJs because they get so much crap anyways. I feel a little bad piling on more, but I love ISTJs, and I think that they're super great to have around. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next